what I want to spend a bit of time on is talking about the processes for building a simple short sim. So the first thing you do, obviously, is you pick a topic, and so it's really important to to get a topic. It tends to be fairly focused, and so that's just almost uninteresting. But the first goal is to get a topic. I think over time people kind of get a good sense of what makes a good topic or not. I think part of the other change in the thinking is if you are doing short sims, you tend to think of a flow of short sims, not the one big course. A lot of traditional big e-learning courses end up getting scope creep, where they hang around for months and months and months, and every month they hang around, someone says, oh, let's add 3 more things that we want this course to do. And so it becomes increasingly bloated, again, with scope creep. The philosophy of short sims is much more, let's pick a topic, let's do that topic reasonably well, let's get it out the door, and then where we were not perfect, we'll go back and do a second short sim, or a third short sim, or a fourth short sim. And so again, if you have 5 designers, each doing one a week, you can literally be producing 1 short sim a day for an organization. And again, each short sim does not have to be perfect, but every single new short sim sort of picks up on areas that were not covered by the last one. So it's a nice philosophy as opposed to, again, scope creep. So once you have the topic, you then have the interview with the subject matter expert. And I find this single question to be the core of my conversation with subject matter experts, which is there's always the what's the right way of doing this, whatever the topic is. I don't care if it's long division, I don't care if it's avoiding viruses, either in the real world right now, or cybersecurity, or attending or sales pitch, or whatever. Most of the time, whatever the topic is, when I'm interviewing the subject matter expert, my question is not only what's the right way of doing this, which is a fairly short and easy and boring question, but the much more interesting question is, what are common mistakes made in this area? What are common mistakes in this area? And that's where you get interesting answers. And once you start doing there, then you can start asking the follow-up questions, which is why are those mistakes made? What was the misperception that led to that mistake? What was the wrong assumption? So if you again, it takes about an hour-long conversation with the subject matter expert to create, a 10-minute short sim. And it's probing this question and going deeper and deeper. What are other mistakes? What mistakes do novices make? What mistakes do experts make? What are situations that throw people? What are misinterpretations? Where there's faulty information, what is the fault of it? And so I go in the book and, a lot of the things, again, like washing hands. Right now, washing hands is obviously, again, another big issue with the coronavirus. Why? So the rule is in healthcare workers, you're supposed to wash your hands every time you leave the patient's room, and you're supposed to wash your hands every time you enter a patient's room. So those are very, very simple rules, and most people, you can tell people that very quickly. But then the question becomes, why don't people do that? So if it's such a simple rule, why do people make mistakes? They're in a hurry. They don't want to appear dirty. The machine is broken. They don't know what to do. Whatever. All those things become the interesting things to then simulate. In some cases, they don't think it's important. In that case, you get to these issues of how do we develop not just competence but conviction? How do we build an important belief in something as being important, not just the superficial? Here's the activity. So this is the really interesting question to ask people, and this sort of produces the interesting content. And what I do is so from this hour-long conversation I have with my SME, I create notes and I listen to the audio recording. And it probably takes me about 4 hours to listen to an audio recording of my 1 hour interview with the subject matter expert. So it's about a 4-hour experience, so it's pretty long. And I listen to everything very carefully and start taking notes. And these notes are all problems. These are all the problems in the process in this case, of someone accepting a passport. It's a very simple process. It's very predictable, which is good. And so these are all the problems that can come up when, and this is actually a government passport, not a civilian passport. These are all the problems that can come up in it. So I'm creating all the notes. Now I go from there, and this is just a couple examples. So one of them is if the applicant is going to the Middle East, they can't have photographs of their shoulders exposed. That's considered rude. The passport picture has to be taken within the last 6 months. That's another thing where, again, people can get wrong. This is something so my red ones, the things I tag red are the common mistakes or the interesting mistakes. And then this is a best practice. Applicants should go onto the Passport Wizard website where there's a red asterisk here, and where applications instructions are on. There are application instructions on the website. So again, sort of in the best practices categories. So I create, so I go back and I record very dutifully all the things. One thing I really like about this process is I love capturing the voice of the subject matter experts. So literally when the SMEs are talking, they have phrases that are very human, very interesting, very contextual phrases. And as much as possible, I like taking their phrases and using their exact language. Then you start thinking of the setting. And again, my example here is really, really simple, which is this is basically a walkthrough process of this is a walkthrough simulation of a fairly predictable process. So I use this as our simple example. There are much more interesting examples, but this is sort of one, it's easy to wrap our hands around this. So for your first sim, do something simple. Don't kill yourself. Don't be creative. I mean, be creative, but don't be too ambitious. Pick a nice, simple thing. In this case, this is a walkthrough and it's fairly on the rails. We're not deviating terrifically. We're not going into a bunch of areas. This is a fairly walkthrough on the rails experience. In this case, the setting itself is, we are going to be the agent. We're going to be the passport acceptance agent taking people's passports. So where we can be that simple, we sure want to be, because plenty of times we can't be. And now you kind of go through your notes and you start grouping them up. And you start saying, okay, so the first person arrives, the second person arrives, and so you can have, there's going to be a basic level design, and you start organizing things. So here's one. Hey, here's my application, and you start taking in these sort of short notes. Okay, look at the form. This form has no barcode, so that's a problem because you need to have a barcode. Okay, so you start tagging these together, and then as you start organizing these, in this case, let's say I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, roughly six applicants coming in, and it's really, really fun. The real challenge or the real opportunity is to see how many of your red boxes, to see how many of your problems you can string together in one situation. So without, in this case, every time a new person is called up to the window, you can switch levels, you can switch applicants and sort of bring in new issues. So if one bombs out, you can, if one person you have to reject, now you have a new person with new problems. So it's really, really fun to try to figure out how few levels, in this case, how often you can combine these things together to create interesting, coherent situations. I had a cybersecurity sim I was working on a couple weeks ago. And there's a bunch of decisions the player had to make regarding where to store information the right way. And what was nice about that is I can say, okay, this, I can create the short sim was around one day in their life, and this is a day where they happen to go on a business trip, and so the morning started off with them in the office, and they had to make a bunch of decisions regarding cybersecurity friendly decisions. They then got in a cab, they went to the airport. At the airport, they had to make a bunch of decisions. On the airplane, they had to make a bunch of decisions. When they landed and resynced, they made a bunch of decisions. And finally, when they gave the presentation, they made a lot of decisions. So each of those were considered different levels, but each of those levels provided a very coherent context for a lot of decisions. And the more you can have a sort of a nice, simple narrative around these, the better you can do. So now in this case, okay, I have a couple of my things. Applicant going to the Middle East, can't show their shoulders. The passport picture has to be taken within the last 6 months. So those are two examples of little things I want to cover in the short sim. So now it's easy to imagine, okay, a person arrives. An applicant arrives, they're going to say hello, and so again, I just type this stuff directly into the short sim. Applicant going to the Middle East, so I move my little box there to there. Now, we're going to have to reject the picture, presumably because they're going to show their shoulders. The applicants can say, oh wait, I have a second picture in my folder, and that this picture is going to be rejected because it was not taken in the last 6 months, and then they have to go and get a new photograph. So I can kind of create, using a couple more blocks, I can start blocking it out and start saying, what's the flow of this conversation going to be? And so, right now, this is pretty good from a perspective of this shows me now how this sim is going to work. Okay, so if you go back here, at this point you have it all blocked out, and literally before you start doing a lot more work of adding decisions, you can start playing it, and you can start playing through the sim and start having a good sense of the feel of it. And in some cases, you're going to want to move around levels. In this case, move around applicants. This person may be going later because it's harder. This one seems easy. We're going to move it on here. So you can start moving it around a little bit, but start getting a feeling for the flow of it before you start even going any deeper than that. You can start getting a flow for it. Now, the basic configuration for a lot of the sims that I do is roughly speaking, there's going to be some coach character, and the coach character is So one thing that I do, again, I do a lot of things that are slightly off from the traditional dialogue simulator. And one thing I like to do is add a coach character. So the coach sets things up, and the coach can be visualized or not. In this case, I'm going to visualize the coach. And so you roughly going to have some kind of coach set up, some kind of character set up, and I'll show you what this means. Then a decision. And in this kind of very simple situation, there's a wrong decision and a right decision. Most of the time when people make a wrong decision, you go, nope, that's not the right one, try again, or go back or something. And so it's not even, it's not a big X, it's not something that's scary or frustrating. It's just wrong. And most people will try to avoid the wrong decisions, but if they do it, it's not this giant problem. Also along the way, we give them opportunity for more information. So in a 10-minute sim, potentially, if they ask for all the information, it may be a 15-minute sim. They may have, we can tuck in a lot of information that is optional. Someone can say, well, tell me, what do you mean by this, or what is the policy, or whatever. So tucking in a lot of information that people can optionally engage is one way of maintaining, again, avoiding the directive leadership style of teaching someone too much, and much more of a collaborative leadership style of letting them ask for information if they want it. And then sort of the right decision to conclusion. So this is sort of the atom. This is the molecule, the smallest little piece of content that we want to apply. So now, again, we've done that. We've done that. And now we've added this. So now we start adding in all of these decisions. Again, in this situation, a very simple decision. We're gonna have a turn in a picture. We're gonna accept it or reject it, and then again, another picture, accept it or reject it. So it's sort of, that's what the flow looks like at this point. At this point, it's actually kind of fun because now we start going Hollywood and we start thinking about casting. So casting and art is sort of the part you're at right now, and that's really fun. It really is fun to go through, and it's really fun to choose characters. It's fun because you want to get the nuances right. You want it. It's not just a matter of, oh, we need a whatever person. You find people and you like people and you see their different emotions, and you can and you really start playing with them, and you really start looking at the characters and sort of getting a feel for them. And I don't like going long on story. I don't like going long on character, but you do start, you are influenced by the photographs, and there is an ability to make things feel right. And then you choose settings, and you can be very creative with settings. In some simulations, I'll have 5 or 6 or 10 settings that people go through even from a stock art perspective. But in other cases, I'm going to create my own settings, backgrounds, and use them. I'll show you how I do that. So now we have this is our character. This is our person who's going to apply for the passport, and this is the passport office here, which I kind of, that was the thing that looked closest to sort of the generic government passport office. And now what I'm doing here is I'm doing a tiny bit of custom art. I don't love custom art. I use a lot of clip art where I have to. But what I do use is I use PowerPoint, and I have a slide that's sort of set up to match the frame. And I'm going to create the art in PowerPoint because I'm fairly incompetent with real tools, but real artists can use real tools. But I can do this in PowerPoint. The other nice thing about PowerPoint is when clients don't like something or want to change something, it's very, very quick to go in and make new things. So here I am. So I created a picture, and actually I did Photoshop on this woman's face onto different shoulders. But in a fairly quick and dirty way, but it was sufficient for this project. And this is roughly this, the size of a passport photograph. So this is sort of my little mock-up of a passport photograph. So here it is. This is sort of the final sim. So it's a reviewing passport thing. So here's our coach. Welcome to the passport thing. I'm going to skip past this, and this is just I'm putting this little link so we can go right to our situation. Okay, so next person arrives. Here's a coach. She's setting up the situation. I really like having a coach. Therefore, you can do a lot of heavy lifting using a coach character. And okay, the person arrives. Great. Hi, I'm going to the Middle East for 2 months. Excellent. So again, and it's just really important how short that setup is. I mean, it's an incredibly short setup. I'm going to the Middle East. We don't need to have a big long story, but we do need to give a little bit of context. So great. Here's my photograph. And what do? Do you accept it or reject it? And it kind of comes down to that, this moment, this big moment of accept it or reject it. It's not, the consequences aren't high. You don't fail out. You're not going to die if you get it wrong. But here it is, and someone can play with it. And reject it. Good call. It could have been accept it, and it could have been don't do that. So it's not super elaborate. And now we have the answer. So no matter what path you go down, you kind of get the right answer. You tell the applicant that bare shoulders are not culturally acceptable in the region where she'll be traveling. It's, pretty simple. Great. Now she's a little peeved. I like making people peeved, but actually I may have another picture in my folder. Wait as she looks through the folder. So again, we're not using these as dialogues. We're sometimes we are, but sometimes we're just using these as direction. So we're gonna now wait as she looks through her folder. Yes, I knew it. Here's a photograph from a few days ago, from a few years ago that I took the same day. So now she has a dated picture, and once again we're going to reject that one because it's an old photograph. Good call. Continue. You tell the applicant the picture has to be taken within the last 6 months, and so good. So it's and now I think that's great. So that's sort of the moment, and it's a short moment. It doesn't take a whole lot of time for the player to go through. It makes the points. We've made 2 of our points, in a fairly effortless way. It's fairly fun for the user to bang through. If you look behind the covers here, this is what the ending sim looks like, which looks kind of scary, I think, but it's really not too bad. You build them out carefully, and if you build them out well and predictably, what's really nice about a good short sim is that if anyone can look at this and play through it and edit it and sort of figure out, if they want to change this little moment, it's very easy to go in and change other people's work.